covers the Detroit Pistons and Detroit Lions.
The best in the game.
.com. Mr. Kory Woods. Kory, how are we doing, my friend?
Hey, what's going on? How you guys doing?
Kory, you're walking into a shitstorm right now, and you are the guy we bring on. Usually, Kory comes on during shitstorms, and he usually settles everything. So, Kory, Micah Parsons, he is now a Packer. Your reaction to that and just the Packers, and then thoughts on Lions fans thinking that you could have two $50 million edge rushers, Kory?
Well, I walked down the first one, just the instant reaction. I was just like, wow, they went ahead and got him. And, I think the Packers were going to be a tough opponent for the Lions this season regardless. I was kind of iffy on whether I had the Lions winning the North or not, and I know people are going to go crazy about that, but I mean, I think, I still think that I still have them in the Super Bowl. I just didn't have them. I was just iffy on picking them to win the North. Having said that, the Packers, whether people want to, I don't know what kind of hill people are dying on or not about this, but the Packers got significantly better. Micah Parsons is a game changer. This is a guy that, has not had less than 12 sacks a year since he's been in the league. He's probably going to, if he stays healthy and he continues to play the way he's going to play, he's going to be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
And I don't think that the move necessarily is like, oh, the Packers are going to win the North, the Packers are going to win the Super Bowl, but I think you're kidding yourself if you don't look at that move today and say the Packers got significantly better. Micah Parsons is a guy that can win you a game, and the Packers have lost 6 of the last 7 to the Lions, including 2 straight. So getting Micah Parsons, I mean, that can change. That can win them a game. It's just that simple. So I think it's a good move for them. I think the Lions are still going to be the Lions, whether you have them, wherever you have them. But the move does make the NFC North race a lot tougher on paper.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Kory, one thing I actually thought about today when that came out is obviously Brad met this morning with the media and the Zadarius Smith questions and all that. Do you think now that this trade happened and Micah's in Green Bay, they're now the favorites on sportsbooks to win the NFC North? Do you think that kind of puts a little fire under Brad, and Brad's like, hey, we kind of have to make a counter move to get Zadarius in here or go get someone else to add to this defense?
Not necessarily, because at the end of the day, well, let's walk through this whole Zadarius thing. About 3 weeks ago, Brad said that they were in communication with his agent, and the lines of communication were open, and they, he didn't want to say Zadarius didn't want to be in camp, but he they were in talks. Today, he said there have not been any recent talks, and that's also like a day after ESPN's Jeremy Fowler saying that multiple contending teams have been reaching out to Zadarius to see, what's going on with him. But he said right now he's still training, but he's waiting for the right scenario. So I think kind of like taking all that together, and the fact that Zadarius is still unsigned, it could be that it's just Zadarius. It could be the money that he's requesting might be a little bit too rich for some teams, including the Lions. I mean, at the end of the day, this is not a simulation. This is not Madden. 2 teams, 2 people have to tango. And the Lions can offer a fair deal. Other teams can offer what they feel is a fair deal. But at the end of the day, Zadarius has to sign. So I think that the one thing that even in the end, Zadarius did say he wants to be back, but Zadarius saying he wants to be back doesn't mean he doesn't want to get his bag. And that's part of the reason why the Lions cut him, because the bag was too rich for them. So at the end of the day, I wouldn't really just be all in on blaming the Lions if they do not get Zadarius Smith back, because we don't know what those talks are looking like. And at the end of the day, it could be that the price is just too rich to bring him back. Yeah, you want to go ahead and cash in on this Super Bowl window. You want to go ahead and add in another quality edge rusher when healthy opposite Aiden Hutchinson. But I mean, if the deal's not right, the deal's not right. And I think right now with the Packers getting Micah Parsons, trying to rush and go sign Zadarius is probably a panic move, and he will be holding the cards to drive that price up. And you just don't pay a guy whatever because you're acting out of panic. And just the last thing before you ask the next one, for many people that's probably in this chat, Brad Holmes has built he's the architect of the most winningest Lions product anybody has probably seen. And whether you like his moves or you hate him, I believe he's earned enough cachet to be able to build this thing and steer it the way that he wants to.
I've interrupted the video to tell you about the sponsor of today's video, Comer and Cross, and their one-day installation for concrete floor coatings, garages, basements, patios. They do it all. And I'm sure you're tired of staring at your crack-stained garage floor. Well, I have the answer for you. Comer and Cross in their summer installation sale, they're offering 12 months same as cash or $500 in savings. Why put it off? You can contact the number 248-834-3488. They transform patios, pool decks, basements, even driveways. They do it all. And the best part is they move the stuff out for you. They repair your cracks and pits before applying your stunning new floor, guaranteed. Comer and Cross concrete floors never chip, crack, or peel like epoxy or paint. Again, you could call the number 248-834-3488, or you can book your free estimate at comercross.com. Let's get back to the video. Yeah, Kory, the conversation about, and it's not all, I think most Lions fans are on the same page, but I think it has to do with him being in the NFC North too. Lions fans saying, well, hey, Brad, why didn't you try and make this deal with Micah Parsons? It's not even Micah, but it seems like this is a common thing with Trey Hendrickson, whatever edge is available besides Za'Darius that needs to be paid for whatever reason. Everyone wants that player. And we fell victim to that in one circumstance with Myles Garrett, because we weren't sure if I think we at first we thought Myles would play on the deal he was on. So that's why we were like, okay, this could get interesting. Obviously that was never true. We talked about that. It was over. But just for the fan base, the percentage, whatever, it's small or marginal, that still thinks Brad fumbled the Micah Parsons deal. What do you think of that? Do you think there's some validity to that, or you think, guys, like, chill the hell out? The Lions were never, ever, ever going to be in on Micah, Trey Hendrickson, or none of these big names that need to be paid.
Well, if anybody's been paying attention to what Brad has been saying for the past couple of months, he's been saying that there's a bill that is due. So I don't even think the Lions were ever fiscally in a position to go after a Micah Parsons when you still have to pay Aiden Hutchinson. You still have to decide whether you're going to pay Jamison Williams or not. You just paid Kirby Joseph and you just paid Derek Barnes. So I don't think realistically they were ever in a position to go grab a Micah Parsons. Now, if you look at something like a Trey Hendrickson, who got a 1-year, $30 million, I believe, from the Cincinnati Bengals, or just some of these other, quality edge rushers out there on the free agency market, or some guys that you could have probably got through trade. Okay, you can say like, hey, Brad, where was the energy in just getting extra depth? Because now you're going into this season relying on a Marcus Davenport who has only played 6 games over the past couple of years. You're relying on Al-Qadim Muhammad. You just got Tyrus Wheat off of waivers from the Cowboys. You're expecting him to do something. You got you have so many other injured parts. I mean, like Levi's out for the year. He was playing inside and outside. You don't have Ahmed. So if you want to say that the Brad could have shown a little bit of sense of urgency, I get that. But when it comes to Micah Parsons, I don't think it's a fumble. I think that is just jarring. Like you said, it's jarring that a pass rusher of his skill set, of his quality, tenacity, is now somebody you got to see twice a year.
Kory, I want to kind of just keep talking about this, because the one thing I think this impacts a lot, obviously, is Micah Parsons did in this deal get paid $47 million a year. And we know today Brad had mentioned about Aiden Hutchinson, that they're working to get a deal done. They're still kind of trying to get that all wrapped up. How do you think this is going to affect this Lions team? Like, obviously, Hutch is going to get, whether people think he's going to get over 47 and reset the market again, or he's going to get around that number, at least 45-ish. How do you think this impacts these other signings? Guys like Brian Branch, Jahmyr Gibbs, Laporta, J-Mo. Do you think a couple of these guys are going to end up getting left out now, the fact that this edge position is obviously almost up at $50 million? It seems like that's like a massive jump from, probably 12 months ago. I think the highest was maybe 35, 37, and we're almost at 50 with it. How do you see that kind of playing out there?
Oh, absolutely. There's about to be some. This team is going to look very different over the next couple of years because you just simply can't pay everybody. I mean, now that you paid Kirby Joseph, now that you paid Derek Barnes, okay, you might have to let J-Mo walk. I mean, you might actually have to let Brian Branch walk. I mean, you gotta keep Hutch. You gotta keep Jahmyr Gibbs. I believe that's a future NFL MVP in my opinion. So there's gonna be some guys that have to go. You might have to trade some guys. You never know, but this team is not. This is to me. This is really the year that they have to go out and go get that Super Bowl if they want to, because the window is closing because you can't pay everybody. Not because the team isn't good. It's just that it's just going to cost too much. So, I mean, that's just my thought on that part.
Yeah, Kory, the trade that happened, I wanted to ask you, Tim Patrick traded to the Jacksonville Jaguars. What does that mean? And what does that mean for Isaac TeSlaa? And because you were at camp, you got to see his development, but them being comfortable enough to trade away Tim Patrick, who they obviously relied on last year to be that wide receiver 3, I think it speaks volumes to Brad, because they got Tim Patrick for basically nothing because he was waived or released. And then they got him for this past season, and then they flip him for a draft pick, which I think is great for Brad. But would you make of Tim Patrick leaving and kind of what it means for the other 2 young receivers in Khalif Raymond?
Well, first off, I don't think Khalif is going anywhere. I mean, he's your special teamer, and he's a guy that when his number is called, he just produces. He's a gadget guy as well. So I don't think Khalif Raymond was, I think he's always going to have a place in Detroit as long as he wants to, at least. But when it comes down to the Tim Patrick, Isaac TeSlaa thing, I mean, Tim Patrick didn't really have a great camp. And you see what TeSlaa is. I mean, you put him in a trio with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamison Williams, and you still got a Sam Laporta out there. I mean, that is a lot of fire. And you still got to factor in Jahmyr Gibbs, who can line up. That's a lot of firepower for Jared Goff. And I mean, where was Tim Patrick going to be? I mean, last year, don't get it twisted. He showed up in some solid moments, had just shy of 400 yards and about 4 touchdowns. But TeSlaa, we've seen what he did in preseason, and again, we're talking about Super Bowl window. Who's going to give you the best chance at winning? And you got to have some packages for TeSlaa come week 1 against Green Bay. Me and Ben were talking about that on our podcast. You just can't just say, hell, we'll figure it out later on in the season with a guy that can take the top off defenses like that. So I believe he's ready. He's looked ready all camp, and the Lions have always talked about trying to get even younger at that wide receiver position. And, the trade Tim Patrick, that signals that.
What do you think, Kory, with the defensive line? There was actually a lot of players that felt like during camp that stood out. Guys like Nate Lynn, Isaac Ukwu. I'm missing someone here. Oh, Keith Cooper Jr. Yeah. That I feel like a lot of people, ourselves included here at Crutch Time, we thought that those guys were going to make the team. At least Keith Cooper Jr. was a big one, and Nate Lynn. How do you think that kind of went down? Do you think, and obviously they brought in the 2 guys from waiver wire. Why do you think it was that those guys just didn't make the roster after the kind of training camp that they had?
Well, I believe Brad talked about it. He said, hey, 50 guys made the team. That's just what they felt. I mean, obviously they said that the extra 3 spots, now down to 1, but the extra 3 spots at the time gave them flexibility to claim guys like Lacey and Wheat. They always said that they were going to be looking at players from other teams that they could bring in to help this roster out. And it was a gamble, really putting those guys on the waiver wire, but they got them back. They got them on the practice squad. But Brad simply said, look, we're not just going to give guys roster spots just because we have them available. We picked the guys that did enough to warrant being on the 53, which was 50, but the 53-man roster. And at the end of the day, you got to commend them for that, because they have a standard for who is going to be on that active roster. And then the guys that they have on the practice squad, they have a chance to work their way up to that active roster. So I get the question, but I mean, Brad laid it out point blank, and it is what it is.
Yeah, Kory, I want to ask you too, just about the Brad was asked about projects, obviously with Hendon being cut officially and Broderick Martin being cut, 2 third-round picks from the draft where they landed 4 very good players, so no one really ends up giving a damn. But what'd you make of kind of Broderick and Hendon Hooker's departure, Brad cutting third-round picks, which I will give him credit for because that takes swallowing pride to do that. But what'd you make of Brad's answer today with handling the future with projects? Because I feel like that's just a constant question he's always going to get. But what'd you make of those moves?
I thought the moves they were about time. I mean, like, nobody was really talking about Broderick Martin, even from the reporters. You saw him out there in camp, you saw what it was, and that's, I mean, him being on the waiver wire and exiting Detroit, that's not that much of a shocker to me. Nor is Hooker. I mean, this is a guy that over the past couple of seasons that, things just did not work out for him in training camp. It just did not click. Brad's answer, I mean, pretty much what else could he? I don't think know what else he could really say. But I mean, yeah, those guys just didn't work out here, and they landed on their feet. I think it's good for Hooker to go ahead and get the new scenery. I believe Dan Campbell pretty much had that on the wall the other day, said that he needed to change his scenery, so he's going to be able to jumpstart his career, hopefully for him in Carolina. Broderick Martin and KC, not sure how well that's going to go, but I mean, for Brad to let those guys go, that just, you got to commend him for that. It just says like, hey, it just didn't work out, and we're not going to keep trying to fit square pegs into a round circle. So sucks for those guys, but at the end of the day, they got to move forward and continue to build this thing the right way, because again, we just talked about it. That window is closing because of financial reasons, and you got to keep those spots open for guys that can come in here and help this team now.
Yeah, last one I have with the roster, Kory, is that the secondary, we obviously got to see that thing kind of shape out. There was a safety battle. It felt like Jeff and I actually talked about it the other day, like Ian Kenley and those guys, Lawrence Strickland. It felt like there was like a safety battle going on for the last safety position. And then really none of them made the team, and they ended up sticking with Devontae Maddox and Rock Yassin there. What are your thoughts on that secondary and how it turned out, especially with a couple guys? It feels like that are a little bit more flexible. And we saw in training camp kind of get, reps at the nickel, at the safety position, outside corner. It feels like they just went flexibility, but just ended up not keeping any of those other safeties that were competing.
Yeah, that was a bit shocking to me. I thought that Ian Kenley, I thought he definitely had a solid camp, and I thought he would have made the 53-man roster. At least, at worst, I thought he would have made practice squad, and he was neither. So that one was actually pretty shocking to me. But at the same time, and then also I want to add another reason it was shocking is because I spoke with Devontae Maddox personally, and he said that him playing safety is foreign to him. Like Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph have been the ones, reaching out and giving him pointers on how to play the position, and he told them like, hey, if I'm doing something wrong, call me out. So, but the thing is, he's played some solid snaps at it. Rocky Scene, he's didn't play as much safety, but I mean, he's showed the versatility to do so if needed. So, not shocked at them keeping the veterans, but just Ian Kenley not making it on either the 53 or the practice squad, that did kind of, that did throw me for a loop.
Well, we appreciate you, Kory, as always. Keep up the great work. You guys can follow Kory, of course, at Kory Woods. Kory, keep crushing it. And you know what? Keep being the voice of reason out there, my friend. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, have a good one.
There you go.
Appreciate
Kory Woods joining the fellas, talking some Micah Parsons and the roster, of course, because that is all relevant. Hey, what's going on there? It's Jeff Iafrate. Appreciate you for finishing the video. You can check out one of the videos here suggested or show support by commenting, liking, and subscribing. And buy your merchandise, officialctsports.com.